Without using a calculator, we're going to sketch the parabola. So to do this, we can get a lot of different information about the parabola. The first thing I'm going to want to do is put it in factored form. So to put this in factored form, we're going to want to do x game. So we can think about what numbers multiply to -3 but add to -2. I can also think about this in my box, where what numbers are going to give us x squared and -3 here. And the only factors of -3 are 3 and 1. Now, because we want -3, we know 1 has to be positive and 1 has to be negative. And because 2x is negative, we know the bigger number is going to be negative. So our factors of -3 are simply going to be -3 and 1. So we're going to be left with -3x and positive x, so like 1x. All right, so this leaves us with the factors of x minus 3 and x plus 1. So I can rewrite this as y equals x minus 3 times x plus 1. All right, so I'm just going to move these two things near each other. Okay, great. So now I'm going to think about the different information I can get from my graph. So we have our x game to get into factored form. One of the things we can get is our x-intercepts. And to get our x-intercepts, this is when y is equal to 0. So I'm going to take my factored form, I'm going to set it equal to 0. So when y is equal to 0, we have x minus 3 times x plus 1. Great. And we'll know that the outcome will be 0 because anything multiplied by 0 will be 0. So when x minus 3 is equal to 0, this whole equation will be equal to 0. And when x plus 1 is equal to 0, the whole equation will be equal to 0. So I can add 3 to both sides, and we'll be left with x equals 3. And I can subtract 1 from both sides, and we'll be left with x is equal to -1. So in my graph, I'll be able to see that my x-coordinates are at my x-intercepts are at -1 and 3. I also know that our graph is going to be upward facing because in front of the x squared, it's positive. So it's positive x squared, which means our graph will be upward facing. Another piece of information I can get is my y-intercepts, and this is when x is going to be equal to 0. So I'm going to literally just substitute 0 into my standard form. So 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 3. So my y-intercepts is going to be when y is equal to -3. Okay, so we can see here that my x-intercept is going to be at -3. So you can my y-intercept is going to be at -3. So you can kind of see possibly how the graph is going to do something like this. However, to be even more precise, I know that I could get my vertex. So to get my vertex, I'm going to take my quadratic equation and put it in vertex form. So we now have standard form here. We have standard form, we have factored form, and now we're going to get vertex form. So I'm going to take my equation, y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3, and I'm going to start transforming it. So I'm going to bring 3 to my other side. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and we have y plus 3 is equal to x squared minus 2x. Now I'm going to deal with finding my magic number. A lot of you dealt with finding I'm going to section this off, finding your magic number by taking the b-value -2 and cutting it in half and then squaring it. So to do this, we would get -1 squared, which is just +1. So we're really going to add 1 to both sides. A lot of you also thought about this as in a box to make a perfect square. So if this was going to be x squared, we needed to split that -2 evenly. So we would get -x and -x. If we did this, we would have x minus 1 on both sides, which would mean that this would have to be 1. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So we're going to get y plus 3 plus 1 is equal to x squared minus 2x plus 1. Awesome. So we can now simplify this side of the equation to be y plus 4. And I can rewrite this based on my box method, just like we see here, as x minus 1 times x minus 1. So we can write this as x minus 1 times x minus 1. And another way to write x minus 1 times x minus 1 is we can just write it as x minus 1 squared, which is helping us get to our vertex form. And now we're just going to subtract 4 from both sides. And we're left with y is equal to x minus 1 squared minus 4. And we can conclude that our vertex, we can do it in orange, that our vertex is since it's x minus a number, we know that the negative is going to become positive, so it's going to be positive 1, comma, negative 4. And I can graph this point, positive 1, negative 4 here, and that's my vertex, which is my minimum. And now I could really sketch in what that parabola would look like. And again, you're going to want to sketch it so it looks relatively symmetrical and goes through those points. And now if you want, you can plug this into your graphing calculator to check to see how accurate your sketch was.